Martini, shaken, not stirred. You do realize this isn't a bar and I'm not your servant. Come on, can't you just help me out a little bit here? Unlike Pop's Quest, I do like more subscribers. And to get more subscribers, I figured I'd class things up a little bit. So just help me out, come on. Alright, I'll help you out. Martini, shaken, not stirred. Welcome to the Milsurp Mike channel. Today I'll bring you my Martini Enfield Mark I rifle in .303 British, as well as go over some Martini Henry history. A very quick and dirty history leading up to the Martini Henry. The British used the Brown Bess flintlock musket from the 1720s to the late 1830s, and we think the M16 and its descendants are getting long in the tooth. This is when they started converting the smoothbore muskets to percussion cap. Since the Tower of London fire destroyed many of the conversions, an 1842 pattern musket officially replaced the Brown Bess. This was a smoothbore percussion cap musket. In France in the late 1840s, Claude Monet invented the Monet ball and the Monet ball rifle, and the British made the famous pattern 1853 Enfield rifle, which along with the French pattern 1851, outclassed the Russians in the Crimean War, who were just using smoothbore muskets. The pattern 1853 found itself in the United States mainly on the Confederate side of the American Civil War. American Jacob Snyder invented the breech loading action, and in 1866, the British started converting the 1853s to breech loading rifles that shot the .577 Snyder cartridge. This brings us to the Martini Henry. The Martini Henry was designed from the ground up as a breech loading rifle that fired a metallic cartridge. Friedrich von Martini of Switzerland is credited with developing the falling block, self-cocking, lever-operated action, although in reality he refined a design by American Henry Peabody from an external hammer striking the firing pin to an internal coil spring-activated striker. The barrel and polygonal rifling system was developed by Scotsman Alexander Henry, and thus the Martini Henry Mark I was adopted in 1871. The original Martini Henry used a short-chamber Boxer Henry .45 caliber black powder cartridge. The case was the same diameter as the .577 Snyder and was necked down to .45 caliber, hence the .577 450 round. Originally, brass foil was soldered to an iron base, but these were found to be easily damaged, so drawn brass was finally used, and this is what became the .577 450 Martini Henry cartridge that most of us have heard of today. There were 4 versions of the Martini Henry rifle, with the Mark II being used famously at the Battle of Rorke's Drift, where 139 British soldiers held off thousands of Zulus. The performance of the .577 450 was roughly that of the American 4570 government. In 1879, the British had found that the average soldier could only hit a man-sized target up to 400 yards, even though the sights went to an optimistic 1,800 yards. The British developed the .303 round during the 1880s, originally as a black powder round, along with the Lee-Metford rifle to go along with it. I will go into James Paris Lee's rear-locking bolt-action system with detachable magazine in my Lee-Enfield videos, but William Ellis Medford's polygonal groove rifling system was developed to reduce fouling from the black powder. Of course, we all know what happened in 1886. Smokeless powder was developed in France. The Medford shallow grooves were too easily worn for the new smokeless rounds, so the Enfield barrel was developed and started to replace the Medford barrels in 1895. Coming back to the Martini Henry. The British generally like to keep many of their colonies a generation of rifles behind the current rifle. This saw the Martini Henry converted at first with the Medford barrels, and then Enfield barrels to fire the new .303 round. These became the Martini Enfield, which is what I'm shooting today. The Martini Enfield Mark I's were basically Martini Henry Mark III conversions, and the Martini Enfield Mark II's were new production. I have a Mark I. One side of my receiver is marked with the year 1879 and Mark III, while the other side is marked with the year 1895 and ME 303-1. The Martini Enfield served in a reserve capacity in Great Britain through World War I and are reserved in some colonies through World War II. When looking for a Martini Henry or Martini Enfield, Beware the dangerous Khyber Pass coffees or unlicensed coffees made in Afghanistan. Just don't get caught saying Khyber Pass in front of Miles from TFB TV, where he refers to these as Dar martinis. My Martini Henry is an obvious Khyber Pass copy, and in my very first Milsurp Mike video over 3 years ago, I go over what to look for. Just a word of warning, I did that before I started writing scripts, so it definitely isn't my smoothest talking video, as if any of my videos are smooth talking. Getting back, my Martini Enfield is the real deal, but the double arrow shows that it was exported to the Commonwealth or one of the colonies. Thanks to not letting U.S. soldiers currently take trophies anymore, most of the recent bringbacks are pre-1898 rifles from Afghanistan, since these count as antiques and not firearms. Unfortunately, most of the pre-Lee British arms are faked and Khyber Pass or Dar copies, so beware before purchasing. Even though it was single shot, I enjoyed shooting this rifle. Unfortunately, I didn't get to stretch its legs out, as the long and medium rifle ranges were already full that day, so I was stuck on the short range with all the tactitards. It also doesn't help that I cannot move the sight from 400 yards, so I had to aim low just to hit the target 50 yards away. Still, once I got the hang of it, this turned out working much faster than my 45-70 Springfield trapdoor. Not bad for a 123-year-old rifle. Please be aware of where your elected officials and the groups who claim to represent you stand on the Second Amendment. You just might find the Republican you supported and the NRA stand closer with Feinstein than they do you. Please join the GOA, a no-compromise Second Amendment organization who keeps you informed of what really goes on. And most importantly, join your state's organizations who do the most of the fighting that pertains to you. If you like what you see, please check out my other videos, comment, like, and subscribe. Also, please check out my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and who I support on Patreon. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.